this week's session, we look at head of the family, the basics. At some stage in the life of any Revit user, you'll be presented with a large number of families out on disk. Their preview icons will vary in quality and direction of viewing and visibility settings. Also, you'll have icons which are showing reference planes, and you can't actually in fact see what the icon looks like. Through the use of ARUtils head of the family, it's very easy to update these preview icons. It's also easy to carry out many other operations. Let's do the first step of a preliminary run for using ARUtils head of the family to process this folder of families. Let's begin by starting head of the family, which is in the Files section of ARUtils. And if we go to head of the family, it brings up the dialog. Now it's a fairly complex dialog, but basically there are two aspects to it. There's the top section, which relates to generating or extracting information from the family files. Anytime you run head of the family, typically the first step will be to gather the information out of the family files. The next stage, by and large, is to then process those families to your defined standards. Down at the bottom here, you have the option of using Process All, which will process all of the files, and Process Current. Process Current is useful when you're testing your settings to see if they in fact do what you expect them to do. It enables you to open a single family file, adjust your settings, process the current file, and see whether the expected result occurs. One of the most useful things to do when doing a preliminary run, apart from having the list family details and type parameters ticked, is to in fact enable a couple of the update options. So to gain access to the updating options, we can untick the disable updates function, and we can enable a number of categories or a number of updates. So generating the 3D 2D preview is always a useful thing. That will just update your icons and make them all pretty as far as Explorer goes. You can set a 3D preview name, and that will actually be a view within the family files. Another good option is material deletion. Material deletion will delete any materials that are not used within families. A lot of families have default materials in them that you may or may not be using. Generally, it's best to delete these to keep them clean and lean. Another good option is the prefix file names option. In this, particular family types will have a prefix assigned or appended to the start of the file name. So a door, for example, may have a DR prefixing the file name. Alternatively, furniture may have fern. All of those settings can in fact be set through this open renaming definition file. And if I click on that, you'll see that we've got things like columns would have COLM appended. Doors would have DR. You also have some global options so that anything that's a symbol would have sim prefixing, and tag likewise. So, and using this else option, any that you don't find or haven't defined within this file will just use the entire family type definition. So a baluster would in fact have balusters put as the prefix for the file name. Okay, we'll just click on Process All, and I'll come back once that's completed. Hitting process all, the first thing that will happen is that this window will close and a progress bar will appear. At the end of the processing, you'll be presented with a list of what files have been processed, how many there are, what various processes have been done to them. So you can see here, for example, it's processed the preview icon, it's processed material deletion, and it's renamed baluster-round to blstr-baluster-round. Alright, we'll click on Done. And at this point, we'll be presented with an Excel spreadsheet. This contains all of the information relating to those families. There's a whole heap of information in this, and you can use all of the facilities of Excel to review the information and find out things, but generally there are much easier ways to make this information manageable. At this point, we can go back to our Explorer window, and we can actually see that various items now exist under their new name and rendered in a consistent way. All 3D items are rotated to a 45-degree angle. Shading is turned on, and so we get nice consistent viewing of items. Where we have things such as elevation markers, we have reference planes turned off. Where we have items that are wall mounted or floor mounted, the walls or floors are also turned off to give us just the view of the particular items. Now at this point you probably want to get rid of all of your temporary files, and ARUtils handles that quite easily. So we'll go back into our family processor window. We'll just say cleanup.00. So we click on that. It tells us 51 files have been deleted from that folder. And when we go back to our Explorer dialog, you'll see now that we get a much more consistent view of all of our items.